Good morning and welcome to Mecca Live, making engaging community connections accessible here on Friday, August 28th, 2020. This week's theme has been trauma storage sites. Today's topic is trauma relief valve and cleaning house. So we reached Friday. Excited about that. The fact that so many people are struggling and unfortunately many didn't make it to the end of the week. And so we want to celebrate the fact that we've arrived here, both in gratitude and in humility, that we are able to begin a weekend. And I really hope that your weekend includes something relaxing, something enjoyable, something that you can kind of decompress, that you can do or enjoy to decompress from this week and whatever you went through this week, whatever you had to master or survive from this week. I hope that you're able to do so in a way that you are able to celebrate that this weekend. If that involves spending time with family, friends, loved ones, or just in solitude, whatever that may be legally, I hope you're able to enjoy that. Additionally, there are two, I believe two, I want to say three, but I know two young entrepreneurs that I want to be sure that we promote via Mecca Live. That'll be posted on the Mecca Facebook page and the Mecca Instagram page, where we are going to list some information regarding three local entrepreneurs that have begun a business. So one is lip gloss, and I purchased that lip gloss a couple weeks ago, and I love it. This lip gloss, I think it's called Healing Rose or something like that. But I'll post it on the both the Instagram page and the Facebook page, so that you know how to order your lip gloss. It's very reasonable, and I love it. The other one is bath salts and candles. Another young entrepreneur. Now, those two are not even 16 years old. One is 11 and one is, I believe, 14. So I want to support the young entrepreneurs, not just because these two I happen to know personally. The other one I don't know personally, but I received some information about another very young entrepreneur. And if the signs of the times and what's happening right now isn't a clear indication of the reason and the rationale behind celebrating and rallying around our kids with their ideas, their creativity, and ways to generate revenue, but also to generate revenue in ways that they enjoy. This is time. If there was no other time, this is the time. So I want to be sure that I post the links there. So again, you will find them on the Facebook Mecca page and the Instagram Mecca page. And I may need to go back in and put those links in the chat so that people know how to reach that. All right, so let's get right into it because it is Friday, and I know that sometimes we've tried to end a little early on Friday, but we'll see how it goes. Just as a recap, this week we focused on trauma and understanding trauma, unpacking trauma, the effects of trauma on the body, on the mind, what it may look like, how it may manifest, the different kinds of trauma, the fact that one situation doesn't have to mirror another in order for it to be considered a trauma, and what that means. Like, who gets to say that you were traumatized? Who gets to say that this experience left you in a space where you felt like your safety and security were at threat, and that leaving you feeling helpless and in a space of vulnerability beyond it was just overwhelming, right? So we had that conversation. We talked about physical, emotional, psychological trauma. We touched on the differences, but focused mainly on the response, the trauma response, and how that is qualified by the person who was traumatized. We discussed what it looks like, how it may manifest itself, or how children may process that when they experience childhood trauma, specifically those of emotional and psychological traumas, because we were able to define and capsulize physical trauma very quickly in the beginning. And we also acknowledged the natural disaster, traumas related to natural disasters, trauma related to repeated things that a lot of times get overlooked, like surgeries that take several surgeries to complete different familial situations like death of a loved one and loss of a family member in the sense of the family breaking up or blended families and things of that nature. So we spent the time on that. One thing I want to address prior to getting right into the relief valve and also cleaning house is this. I may have touched on it, but I don't know that I was able to unpack it since we're talking about storage banks. I don't know if we were able to unpack it, but um, many, many mental health and many mental health professionals and many organizations that deal with um, children and adolescents, but especially processing different psychological issues or disorders related to trauma or the experience of trauma or just, mental health diagnoses in general. A lot of times they will do an ACE questionnaire, an ACE survey. Um, and let me explain that. I want to explain that because I want to make it clear. I want to connect the research right behind trauma in childhood and how that impacts coping skills and other life issues down the road. So ACE stands for Adverse Childhood Events, and like I said, a lot of these places will utilize this survey. It's a self-administered questionnaire, and I can't remember how many questions are on it, but many places use it, especially if children are involved. A lot of organizations, school social workers, mental health professionals, maybe youth shelters and youth centers, group homes, stuff like that. They may use that just to get a gauge because a lot of times when we do these assessments and these questionnaires, it gives us kind of a baseline of where the individual is as far as traumatic experiences. It sheds light on the means that they either have or would use to cope. So it kind of gives us like a baseline and to look out for, how to assist, and what kind of things to put in place to maximize their potential for achieving their goals. So the Adverse Childhood Event Study was a landmark project in trauma-informed care that documented the relationship between self-reported childhood trauma, child abuse, child neglect, parental separation, parental mental illness, and substance abuse, and adult health. In addition to mental health and substance use, ACEs, or the ACE score, are related to our physical health. And when we talk about the mind, fortress, and body bends. For example, people who experience more ACEs are at an increased risk of heart disease and liver disease. This may be due in part to the fact that repeated trauma and violence can change our physiology and influence the way we cope. Smoking, overeating, undereating, risky behavior, sexually risky behavior, substance abuse, use and abuse, alcohol, blah 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 blah. Why am I sharing this? Because I want to make it clear that I want to say this. So I went to a training in February regarding trauma-informed care and whether it was like school safety and not like safety like I walk in and I don't have a gun, trauma-informed. But it wasn't just schools, right? It was like any capacity that involved children. And so one of the keynote speakers was Dr. Robert Anger, and I got to meet him. The reason why is crucial is because his story is amazing. He is the co-founder of the study that led to the ACE questionnaire. He was an epidemiologist in a couple of different aspects of medicine that he studied and practiced. But he was asked as part of this team in the CDC to study childhood trauma and its effect on physical health of the adult. Like they wanted to look at this. Trauma is impacting all these different things in different ways, and we can't see it, right? So would you be party to this study so that we can see, kind of the breadcrumbs, the pathology, how this works? And it ended up giving birth to this questionnaire, this survey that has been used for several years. I want to say 30, at least 30. But I got to meet him, and it was an amazing experience because he told his story. He told how it came to pass, and he gave examples from his own professional experience that spoke to some of the issues that we are going to discuss inside this live. So what I want to bring to the forefront is the fact that when we have so many different experiences, we have so many different people that, whether they're doctors, whether they're mental health professionals, or whether they are um, coaches, teachers, parents, whatever the case may be, and this looks like this, or I saw this, and I'm not quite sure what's going on. Like, what's happening? When we all come to the table and we all decide that this needs attention, we need to make sure that we have the things in place that best assist whoever, whether it's the student, whether it's the child, whether it's um, the the client, right? My child's friend, whatever the case may be. I've said this before, to be sure that we have the information necessary so we can put our hands on it, right? If we need to reach out to certain resources in the community, or if we're not sure, who the points of contact are, what do we do then, right? So let's get right into it. Let me pull up the link I have to share with you. Because there's one thing. Okay, there's one thing I didn't mention. I want to get right into it. Whether or not the traumatic event included death or not, you made it through the trauma. They made it through the trauma, right? And that makes you a survivor of some sort of loss, whether it's the loss of your sense of safety, your loss of your sense of security, whatever the case may be. The natural reaction to loss is grief. And I think I said it in I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday, I mentioned that when we lose that, we sometimes, when we lose friendships, the person may not have expired in the sense of the fact that they are still breathing in and out. At the same token, though, when we're in these have these experiences of loss, it's the same grieving process. It's the same grieving process. Um, so earlier, I mentioned that we're going to have this conversation about what to do. So today is all about the continuum of care, whether it's I begin practicing self-care, I begin adjusting that relief valve. So letting some of that pressure, some of that anxiety, some of that loneliness, whatever it is that's in there that's building up and swelling, even if I haven't given it a name. And because I haven't mentioned it doesn't mean that whatever you're feeling isn't relevant. I just may not have mentioned it, right? So if it's a feeling, or if it's an experience or a reaction to a trauma that you've had, or you're trying to process that I didn't mention, I'm not making that. It's not dismissing it. I just didn't mention it, right? So whatever that thing is, that kind of ebbs and flows, but would be better for your health if it were released. As it Sometimes we can't just flip the valve open, right, and let it all out. It may not be the time. We may not be ready. We may not think we're ready. We may not be in a place where we feel safe enough to do so. So that's why I said relief valve, because sometimes just letting a little bit out allows us to get our regain our bearing and our footing, adjust our breathing, and then keep on going, right? All the way to, okay, I keep adjusting, or if we've arrived at that place where now's the time, this is the space, I'm ready. You flip it all open. I don't know what it would be for you, and that's why I wanted to talk about different things along the continuum, because then you gauge where you are, what would be the best option for you, and then how do I do that, right? But at the end of that, the idea and the hope is cleaning house, because now, you know a lot of times when I'll use the suitcase, because I used that yesterday as an example. There are times when I take all the clothes out of the suitcase and all the souvenirs out of the suitcase, I put things away, I wash them, and whatever the case may be, and I go back to the suitcase somewhere down the line to prepare for a trip. And then what is this? I see a subway pass from when I went home to DC, or I see a receipt from something that was in a side pocket. So sometimes things are left unintentionally, and that may take us back. So hopefully, the things that you put in place to be able to manage and regulate your stress and trauma response, those come into keep them. We put them in place. We practice them. We adjust them. We revisit them to make sure that they are functioning just like we would with our car. We don't change the oil and that's it. Oil change, we never have to do that again. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense because our car still requires oil. So there's that ebb and flow. We have to continue that process, right? So being mindful of these processes and things that we put in place, and also managing them and maintaining them. So making sure that they're, oh, you know what? I usually have to do these 3 steps to get to this calm place. And the last couple of times, I only needed 1 and 2. Okay, leave 3 there in case, because you may come across this one obstacle. You may come into contact with this one situation, this one instance that requires all 3. Being mindful that, I've advanced. Okay, so that's not like, in my to-go bag, but it's in the background, right? Maybe in that side pocket where I may have to use it later. So being mindful of that we have these, it's not just that, because a lot of times we feel like, I've gone through the process, I've done the work. Why am I still here? Or why do I keep back here? Why? Because we're human. And we just may be in a certain space on a certain day where the same thing didn't bother us or didn't impact us the same way 2 days ago as it does right now. Be kind to yourself. That's the biggest thing. Be kind to yourself and understand that today is not yesterday and tomorrow is not today. If we have these things in our arsenal that we can pull on as we need them, then we're better for it. Think of it this way. If you have any family and friends that are veterans, right? When they have different things in their pack, right? Different weapons. They may have a grenade. They may have, different rifles, different whatever. They have options, right? And whether they're infantry or gunnies or whatever, they have different responsibilities. But my point is this: we don't address everything the same way. And the purpose specifically for this live and for the information provided in this one is to make sure that you know that you have options and to select the options that best fit you. So let's get right into it. We talked about exercise, and there's going to be 4 tips that I'm going to go over with you. Try exercise for 30 minutes or more on most days. Now, generally, when we talk about physical health, we talk about at least 3 days a week, some kind of physical exercise. If it's easier to do and turn 10-minute spurts, that's fine. Now, understand I'm talking in relationship to releasing this early stages of releasing trauma that you can manage, right? And the aspect of physical movement and activity. Earlier, I mentioned, I forget which day it was, but we talked about rhythmic exercise. And when we mentioned rhythmic exercise as part of this arsenal to again begin our relief and process of trauma and making sure that we're not storing it physically in places, I wanted to be clear that rhythmic part involves the legs and the arms. So what is that? Walking, running, dancing, we have Zumba and different things of that nature, swimming, basketball, sports like that, that require all of that because our bodies tend to store it and sometimes it comes out, right? And it may be that we just need to do something, right? I know that my energy when I'm upset is a physical one. And so I remember being a kid, and when stuff would go left, I would get on my bike and just ride. And that would help me get it out. A lot of times, if I was angry or upset, I needed to do something physical. So I would play ball, or I would, again, ride my bike. That's really how cycling was. My father gave me my first bike, and I was young, very young, and I loved it, right? So that was my first introduction to cycling, but my love for it was my go-to when I wasn't feeling. I just would go, just ride. I'm so great. I love cycling. But things like that, right? So you understand that a couple of things happen. It can evolve into a positive habit, or it could be a go-to, like one of your coping skills. But it also benefits your body and your physical health, and also make sure that you are not involving yourself in an activity that is going to further exacerbate any area of your body that's already compromised. We talked about mindfulness. We talked about breathing. And so I want to be clear about that. So mindfulness instead of focusing your thoughts on that thing, or on the trauma, um, you're able to find this space where you can move into, right? So, what's that say? It's not a thought in this sense. You're kind of, it's freeing your mind, right? So you're focusing on your body, you're focusing on the movement, the rhythm of your breathing. If you're walking outside, like focusing on your environment. If you're um, like with me, if I was cycling, I used to, and I don't know that I did it deliberately. It was just I became aware of how the wind felt on my face, and I liked it. And so I remember just like I can't wait to feel that constant breeze on my face. Um, so you're becoming involved and engaged with the thing that you're doing outside of what led you to it. You may say, okay, I need to do some mindfulness. I need to give myself a break from that. So what can I do, right? So um, if you within safety, focusing on your body, whatever the movement is that you're doing, and the benefit of it. So for me, the benefit for me cycling, I'll use that as an example, was I was away from the situation. Um, but one of the things that ended up being one of the biggest focal things were not so much I would get tired, I get wore out, but I wasn't so much focused on, oh, my legs are burning. I was like, man, it's pretty out here, right? The scenery and again the breeze on my face. Um, the second tip is try not to isolate. Now, I understand that we have different personalities and different temperaments, and I prefer being alone. Like I love that. I love that because that's when I'm creative and that's when I can think clearly. Um, but as it relates to trauma, sometimes we withdraw because we feel like everybody can see what happened, or we feel like we have to be on and hey, and da 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 da, and we're not. And I don't want people asking me questions, and I don't want people asking me how I feel. Right now, in the age of COVID-19, there are ways to connect without having to physically be there. Right. So um, feeling like, oh, I need to leave, I want to leave, but how do I step out? Hey, give me a sec. Click. You know what? I'm doing good. There's some other things I need to do. I'm gonna talk to you later, okay? Hit me up, boom, and you can go without having to get up and physically navigate people and get in the car and whatever. You have this option. Um, but within social distancing or whatever the case may be, it could be family or however you have navigated your health and safety related to the guidelines given by the CDC and other health professionals in your area regarding COVID-19. um, Face to face is also will help us maintain our relationships and avoid spending too much time alone. But again, we have FaceTime, we have Zoom, we have different ways to do that. um, and be mindful who you spend this time with, because the people that you spend your time with, there have been times in my past, and use this as an example, when I was going through something and I knew that this person was always going to be like, what y'all doing? Nothing. Okay. All I want to do is just, I needed a break from my mind. I needed a break from the thing that was happening. And they didn't even know what was going on. I didn't even tell them. We spent time together just chilling like we always had. But I needed that connection. I needed to talk. And I didn't talk about the trauma. Just, I think it would have made it worse. I think it would have made it worse. But knowing that I had that place and knowing that, and then sometimes, people ask me, and again, be mindful with whom you spend this time, because are you okay? What's going on? La, la, la. Because there are people that can read your face. Yeah, my besties are like that. And if I said, I'm going through something, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, let's move on. I'm here. I got you. You know that? Okay, bet. And then we just keep it moving. Those are the kind of people I would recommend. Because if you're trying to seek this, not to avoid, and you just need like and you don't want to deal with it, then make sure you don't go to people that are going to, because that's going to make it worse, right? If you need support, ask for support, but be mindful again who you ask. You don't have to talk about the trauma, just knowing that somebody's there. That it reminds me of one of the Peanut pictures. Like I think it was an image of Charlie Brown and Snoopy, but from behind, and they're kind of sometimes the best thing we can do is sit with someone who is dealing with something. I remember, and I'm not promoting religion or anything like that, but Michael Card wrote a book called The Lost Language of Lament. I think I'm saying it right. Michael Card, C-A-R-D. He is a Christian singer. He's kind of folky, so a lot of guitar, a lot of strings. But he wrote a book about the lost language of lament. And the key thing about it was he was noting different examples in the Bible, and then after that, where when people were going through things, whether it was a death or a loss or some kind of upsetting event, came together and they all mourned together. The person didn't mourn alone. The person didn't go through it by themselves. And when the mourning was over, then whatever the culture was or wherever the tradition was, they moved on into that. But they didn't mourn alone. And now, like the basis and crux of the book is that now we want people to get past it so fast. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You got this. You'll get through it. But I'm in it right now. So I know that I'll get through it, or maybe I don't know I'm going to get through it. You telling me that, that means that's like blah, 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 on peanuts, right? So what does it mean to tell someone they're going to get through it, that it'll be okay? You can tell me that, but the distance between where I am right now and being okay, give me a map, like help me out with that, right? Um, so be selective, and make sure that you are clear with what you need from them in order for them to be support, and so that they can agree or disagree well informed. Participate in social activities. Again, we have this ability to do so remotely, which is amazing, right? So more things that feel normal to you. What were the things that you did prior that was part of your routine, or something that you enjoy doing that you no longer do or don't do as much, right? And you may have to do it in stages. You have to listen. It's kind of like when we're working out or doing whatever, we listen to our body. My mind may say, I'm going to pick up that weight and do what I used to do. But my body that may be compromised, my body that may be tired, my body that may be responding or recovering from an injury or an illness, right, may not be at my maximum. It's saying, not saying no completely, but not today. And so I have to make my mind embrace what my body's telling me. I can't ignore it because this is the executive function. Nor can I allow my ego to kick in, because my ego may kick in. I may say, I can do this, I can do this. And then worse than before, worse injury or compromise something. So I'm saying that to say this. If you have to do these steps in stages, then that's how it is. We all heal differently, and the pace is your pace. Listen to your body and listen to the reaction and responses you're having. If you feel like you're going too fast, then slow down. The only person at the other end of this process is you, and it's the best you. It's your true you. Reconnecting with old friends is good. The issue of support groups, though, is one that's great, because you can be with other people and not have to interact too much, right? And it's a place where it's a level playing field. We all have experienced something along the same lines, and so my trauma may be different than your trauma, but you can't sleep either. What do you do? I'm not so alone. And there comes a different type of normalcy, right? It may not be the norm that I feel when I go to school or when I go to work or when I'm in my team sports or whatever, or around my friends from different organizations. But I know that the other part of me that I share with these people and these other different organizations and other different groups, that is so real, that is with me everywhere I go, I can go there and they get it. They get that part of me. I don't feel so odd. I don't feel so crazy. I don't feel so alone or discombobulated or broken. That's one of the most beautiful pieces of group support groups and survivor groups, right? Volunteer, and a lot of times we feel good when we do something for somebody else, right? Just because we want to do something for somebody else. And sometimes it helps us feel better about ourselves. Sometimes it gives us a different kind of energy, right? And it depends on what you want to do. Like, you don't have to be volunteering face to face. It could be volunteering for an organization or a group that does face to face stuff, but the part that you're doing behind the scenes helps them to be better able to do what they need to do. It could be at the Humane Society. I tell you every day. I've told my friends, they know the last time I went to the Humane Society, I was having a bad week. really bad week. And the week was difficult, and it culminated in this one day. And this one day, I was taking my best friend to run an errand downtown, and it ended up in this whole confrontation with this lady that we didn't know because we parked in the wrong spot and didn't realize it. And then she just lost her mind. It was just like, yeah. I mean, I had to record it because I was like, no one's gonna believe that this happened in downtown Fort Myers. I recorded it, and it just left me like, and I understood. I understood that there were certain ways that I couldn't respond. I understood in that moment that um, I have to be extra mindful about what my face is doing. I have to be extra mindful about how my tone is. I have to be extra mindful about what I say or if I say anything at all, because I understand the state of current affairs. And this was, is it last year? It was either last year or year before. Why am I saying that? I had already said throughout that week, I need to spend some time with animals. I need to spend time with animals. Animals just make so much sense to me. So I was on my way to take her home, and she was like, and I'm like, what? Hoping that what I thought she meant, she meant. She was like, the Humane Society's right there. I don't have anything else to do. I'm like, we can go. Yes, we can go. So we went right to the Humane Society, and I walked in. We walked in, and like, how can we help you? I said, I need some dog therapy, and they were like, okay. And my friend chimed in, can we pet a dog? She just wants to pet a dog or a cat, or a dog or a cat, or dog. And the lady said, well, we have the cat room right there. You can just go in and pet them. But the dogs are getting ready. Like there was a couple getting ready to go someplace, and they were in that transition where they were washing the stalls and feeding. And so they're kind of in flux. But we don't need walkers, right? Like they were done with the walking and all that stuff. And to be a volunteer, I had to go through a process, right? Um, so long story short, that was my therapy. And I was like, I wasn't talking about what happened. I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just like this is one of the things that give me life. And so that's part of your at home work, but we'll talk about that at another time. So those types of volunteering, we are at 32 minutes, so we're going to go over a little bit, but I want to make sure we wrap this up. If making friends or joining clubs or things of interest, like if there's something you've always kind of wanted to do, now we have painting with a twist, and we have different kinds of, like I know that many groups that have studios and shalas where they do yoga. A lot of them are doing like outdoor social distancing, outdoor kind of come and take a promo class and come let's meditate or whatever, right? So if there's something you've always kind of wanted to do and you have an ability to do it, look on your. I know that many people are on Facebook, and a lot of times Facebook has events in the area, or you can just Google. Um, Local events. And if painting is the thing, or if singing is the thing, or you want to go to a drum circle, if you want to see what's the latest thing in community theater, or whatever the case may be, wine testing, whatever it is, Google it and see if there's anything of that nature happening in the community, and then you can branch out on your own terms and experience that and begin creating new norms or making new friends or exchange or extending a circle that may already be established. So obviously exercise more. We talked about that. Um, but I remember I mentioned vocal toning, and so it sounds kind of crazy. I know that if anyone's watching that is that's done any kind of theater or drama, that's done any kind of like professional speaking in the sense of oration and things of that nature, where they perform like spoken word, things like that. Um, if they sing or anything like that, you know that you've had to do your warm ups and things of that nature. And this is like that, but different. So I know that somebody probably heard that oh yeah, that is one, right? A hum or a sound, and then change your pitch, ebb and flow with the pitch, because that kind of brings everything kind of down. There's certain sounds and vibrations that do calm us, right? But it also warms up your throat and your vocal cords for singing and speaking and things of that nature. The third tip, when you to self-regulate your nervous system. And so we talked about mindfulness, we talked about these different things, but remember that when we're talking about take 10 deep breaths, count to 10, that only works if you do it at the right time, right? If I'm angry or upset or agitated on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at a 7. Right now view is helpful. When I'm in that 1 to 3, I'm aware enough to know when I begin to feel agitated, when I begin to feel, I know what it looks like, I know what's happening, and I'm in that 1 to 3 range out of a 10 maximum, 10 being the highest, that's when I can take those 10 deep breaths. Why? Because I'm sending the oxygen to the top floor. Sending the oxygen to the top floor, if I have this ebb and flow pace, that's going to regulate my heart rate, which is going to make sure that the oxygen gets to the top. Because when it doesn't, my breathing is shorter and shorter and shorter. The oxygen doesn't get as far as it needs to get. My motor skills tend to, in my clearest mind, not thinking short term, intermediate, long term. I'm thinking right now. That's shorter than short term. I'm thinking right now. Oh, I didn't think it through. I reacted instead of responding. And so being able to begin to control our anxiety and this feeling and getting closer to our calm starts with our breathing. That mindful breathing, excuse me. I know we mentioned it yesterday when we were talking about the children and maybe having them lay down and put their stuffed animal on their belly and watching it go up and down as they breathe and watching. They'll breathe fast with the stuffed animal does, and breathe slower. Look how it's the same thing. We may not put a stuffed animal there. We may just watch our watch our bellies and our chest rise and fall. But if you're feeling disoriented and confused or upset, practicing mindful breathing is huge. And if you, we used to call it our clear mind when we calm down. We used to call it our clear mind when I worked with smaller children many years ago. But it's an easy way to self-regulate. Like you can control that. You can take 30 seconds or 60 seconds, or you want to bring it in increments to find your breathing, find the pace, and you'll feel it. It'll start. For me, it starts from here down. It just kind of like this peaceful kind of happens when I start doing it. I do a driving job. There's got some stuff happening on the road. I do it while I'm driving a lot. But if you focus on your breathing, breathing in, breathing out, and the beautiful part about it is if you get distracted and start thinking about the horn that blew, or you start whatever, just go back to your breath. That's all you have to do. It's kind of like when I'm working with people on their stability, physical stability. We're doing different exercise movements that help them with their balance, and they're starting to do it. They start to lose balance. I'm like, instead of doing all this stuff, just put your foot back down. As soon as you start feeling the loss of your balance, put your foot back down. So same thing with breathing. When you feel like you're losing your concentration on your breath, come back to it. If your mind starts to wander, just come back to the breath. Staying grounded. So to feel present in what's happening right now, that is so crucial when we're dealing with trauma because it takes us to places that's not right now and leaves us in this space, right? What are the things that help us to remain in the present and help us to feel grounded? Sometimes sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor and incorporating that breathing. Sometimes sit in the chair, back against the chair, feet are flat, hands may be face down on your knees or up, whatever's comfortable to you, or on your side, whatever the case may be, but you can feel like you're stable. Because a lot of times that's one of the things that we hear and feel when we're dealing with the trauma, and we have a memory that takes us back, or a situation that reminds us, whatever the case may be. And so we're distracted and we're taking in this direction and that direction. And sometimes colors and smells play a role in that. So I know that some people have a sitting chair just for that. That's where they go when they want to chill, right? Or maybe that's the first place they go when they come home and they clean up and they have a seat that just kind of decompress and then go on about the second phase and third phase of their day. I remember when I was preparing to have my son, and one of the things in the class was having a focal point. So while you're breathing, the Lamaze breathing, and all that kind of stuff, having something to look at that's just there. And I remember I had this picture of anyway, I had a picture, and that was my focal point. So sometimes sitting, like I said, back against the chair, feet flat on the floor, you can feel your bottom grounded into the chair. You can feel your back against the chair, so you might that you're sitting, right? And just concentrating on my feet are on the ground, like I'm on the ground, and you just concentrate on what that feels like, what that the back of the chair feels like. Maybe have a focal point, maybe music. Those are different things. The fourth one, take care of your health. One of the things that was revealed in the ACE study is that a lot of times people especially those who have experienced childhood trauma, but we know this as it relates to trauma in general. but specifically that group because they were able to track it, right? Because the research was able to be something that was over a period of time, and they were able to be able to um, track that and see that there was a commonality. Is that oftentimes, not all the time, oftentimes these physical effects of this prolonged trauma, the trauma that was untreated or that we've been navigating over these many years, and here I go with my hair again, it always happens, right around this time, is that um, sometimes in this during this study, a lot of the people that participated didn't continue to monitor their health. That's why I was so adamant about saying, when you get your oil change, and just stop and say, oh, the oil got changed, so we're good. No, we have to do that routinely, right? So maintaining and making sure that these things that we put in place still remain in place and are still effective. Maybe we need to tweak them. Maybe we need to rearrange how that layout is, whatever the case may be. But what they found was that many people that were victims of or survivors of childhood trauma didn't keep up with their doctor's appointments. They didn't have regular doctor's appointments. So maybe some of the things that ended up being health crises down the road could have been prevented by some maintenance and routine care. Not to mention some of the other things that were put in place as temporary coping mechanisms for them, whether it was substance abuse or different types of lifestyles and things of that nature. Sleep. Sleep. Getting sleep is huge. It helps the brain and the body recalibrate. It also helps you heal and recover from different illnesses and thwarts them too, because sometimes we don't know we're getting sick until I don't know why I'm so tired, but I'm gonna take a rest, right? Those of us who go to the gym and work out and are physically active, sleep is huge for the recovery of whatever we've done, right? If we're lifting weights, and we know that by lifting weights and doing things like that, and we're trying to grow muscle mass, the muscles tear down to build up. Sleep is crucial for that. It's not just I'm sitting still and resting. Yeah, that's great too. But sleep, something happens when we sleep. And I can't get into that right now, but different chemicals and what happens in our bodies and how our bodies process through those things. It's huge when we're dealing with trauma. It's huge, it's huge, it's huge. And if your reaction to your trauma is preventing you from getting to sleep, staying asleep, getting at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Usually 8 is the one they recommend. Some of us know that we do better. We're okay with 6, but 7 is a good number, depending on your issues and situations. We need that just in general, but especially when we're processing trauma. It's a good way for us to do what we need to do, and have our bodies be participatory in the healing process when we're often in dreamland. If sleep is an issue for you though, and being able to remain asleep, you might want to consult your doctor and things of that nature. So the use of drugs and alcohol and things that can destroy your health or have a detrimental effect on your health can actually worsen the situation and your process through healing through your trauma, because obviously it disengages the executive function right here, the frontal lobe, and can exacerbate depression, anxiety, things of that nature. If they feel like you're good because you're not feeling it, but then once it wears off, then you're right back where you were. So it's kind of like going in a circle, going in a circle, going in a circle, and it plays a number on your body and your physical health. Eating a well-balanced diet. So small, well-balanced meals throughout the day will help you better manage your energy. And it does. It's crazy how it works. But small, well-balanced meals throughout the day have a direct impact on mood swings, because it has a direct impact on the chemicals that are processed in the brain and how they're released throughout the body. In order to fine-tune that, talk to your doctor, because a lot of doctors have nutritionists on staff. And why is that amazing? That's amazing because if you go to a nutritionist, you pick one that you really like, and no harm, no foul. But if the doctor has a good one on staff, you don't have to go through all your medical history. They have it. They have access to it. And a lot of times, if you make the appointment, they'll make themselves familiar with your medical history that they have access to prior to you coming. So that saves some time. You can narrow down what you need to do. But again, this is information. This is general information, and make sure that you don't just say, I'm going to eat 3 small meals throughout the day, and I'm going to do it like this. Well, I haven't told you how to do it. So make sure that everything I tell you, check and double check, and make sure that it works within your body, your if you have any kind of hereditary situations or any compromised systems or illnesses or disorders, that you act inside of that to make sure that you're safe in that regard. But generally speaking, Well-balanced small meals throughout the day help with energy and mood stabilization. Sugar, fried foods, they tend to work in the opposite direction. So you want to avoid those, but everything within moderation, everything within reason. But avoiding sugar and fried foods helps. The other thing that maximizes is omega-3s, salmon, walnuts, soybeans, flax seeds. Those things are mood boosters, but there are many more. So I just want to give you some tips, but you can do some further exploration on that. And then reducing stress. We know the things that, if I asked you the 5 things that cause you stress, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you probably name 10. What are the ways we can avoid? Can we replace them outright? Can we reduce our exposure to them? Can we remove them? Can we replace them? What can we do, right? And meditation, yoga, deep breathing exercises, routinely. Like you start the day and end the day. I do that. I start the day with my with meditation. I end the day with meditation. But I have this thank you journal, and I sit on my lanai, and I have a candle that I light, and I just write. At the end of the day, I'm so glad. Thank you for this. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad for this. This happened because I have it in writing. You flip through it and say, you know, I have a pretty good life, right? Even when it's a bad day, that's the best time to do it. Don't neglect doing that. If you start doing that, don't neglect doing that if you're having a bad day, because that helps you stay focused on the fact that it doesn't matter what's happening. I can still be grateful, right? It also helps you figure out, yeah, I could probably done that way, right? I know that I'm grateful that I was able to do these 3 assignments. Okay, let me see if I can do 4, right? My point is this, making it a part of your day every day creates a habit, and habits create a lifestyle. So if I have pit stops, right? If I know that I get gas and my tires are good, I'm driving. But if something happens, I know where to go to handle that, right? Then, let's say I had no problem going from here to Chicago. I always say Chicago, I don't know why. Going from here to Chicago. Gas up the car. I had the car evaluated. Is the car in good shape to make this trip? Okay, great. That's your checkup. I have what I need. Da, 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 da. Timing, map out the direction. Boom, I'm driving. How many of us have used GPS? And GPS says, traffic ahead, use alternate route. So now we have a different way to go to get to the same place to avoid that, right? If something should happen. Oh no, I'm getting low on gas. I forgot. Blah, blah, blah. Pull over. I know where to go. That's what this is. That's what we do when we practice healthy things and put them in place. And then those things that we put in place end up being habits, and those habits become a lifestyle. So now we know I can go here and put, blah. I mean, this is going to get belly relief valve. It's going to, inside starting to swell. I know that my insides are not going to go too far outside of where they need to be if I do this maintenance. I know that if I change my oil and put oil in the car as needed, I'm not going to have too many issues with oil related complications of my car because I'm taking care of it. That's the point. But let's continue on, because sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes that's good, and those are things we want to keep in place. But what if you start that and just that's not enough? Because understanding this process, it's not just enough to go sit and be mindful and to become physically active and make sure you're eating. We're not working on that trauma. That's helping us manage. That's helping us, okay, in this moment I'm good. But how do we deal with that? How do we process that? Beyond that, how do we, like I said, clean house? So, like I said, recovering from trauma takes time. And everyone heals in their own pace and their own time. So don't rush yourself. Don't rush anybody else. And be kind to yourself. I should be over this by now. 5 months have passed. I can't let it go. I can't get over it. Okay. There's no timeline. But if you feel like you've been doing due diligence and something that was working is no longer working, or you want to expedite the process. Remember, I said we're going to start with self-care all the way to treatment. Here we go. So if your symptoms are worsening, or if you find that you can't sleep and you're having more flashbacks, or you just feel stuck in this place, or you have this, that this is related to your trauma, or you don't know, here's what we can do. Seeking help for your trauma. And let me put it like this, because I know someone's thinking, well, what does that mean? How do I know? Are you having trouble functioning at home or work? And remember, this is within the context of trauma. Suffering from severe fear, anxiety, or depression. Unable to to form close, satisfying relationships. And these are things that predated the trauma that weren't here. Experiencing experiencing terrifying memories, nightmares, flashbacks. I just mentioned that. Avoiding more and more anything that reminds you of the trauma. So now we don't go down that road, or we don't participate in that organization. We don't go to school because this thing happened at school, right? And I'm going to talk about that in a different aspect next week. But Title IX is huge for that. We'll talk about that next week. Emotionally numb and disconnected from others, using alcohol and drugs to feel better. Working through trauma can be scary and it can be difficult, and making sure finding the right thing for you can be difficult. But you know that you can Google it. You know that if you have mental health friends that are mental health professionals or whatever the case may be, you can find out. If you're in school, especially college, talk to your Title IX coordinator, because that's part of what they do, right? So ask yourself, do you feel comfortable discussing your problems with a therapist or someone else? Do you feel like a therapist understood you when you're talking? Were your concerns taken seriously? How do I even find a therapist? We talked about that earlier, but I want to talk about a couple of things, three more things, and then because I said I was going to break down some of the ways that we deal with the trauma. So sometimes they'll use somatic experiencing. So focusing on the sensations that and thoughts and memories rather than the event itself. This thing happened. Okay, so how did it make you feel? What do you smell? What do you see? And it doesn't always involve hypnosis, because a lot of times we're very cognizant of the situation, those things. So, but by concentrating on what happened, what's happening in your body can help you release pent up trauma related energy and feeling and shaking and crying and things like that. And so sometimes our bodies react. I remember I experienced a trauma and my mind pushed it away. And I remember I was in this, actually we were watching a movie and I was shaking so much so that all you could hear was the ice in my cup shaking. And my friends were like, "What? Put the cup down." They didn't know. So what happened? I don't know. What are we watching? What are we doing? So we had to unpack it that way. And I may share that at a later date. But I'm getting close to an hour, so I'm going to be able to finish. So sometimes there will be somatic experiences that the therapist or the group may focus on as a means to helping us release that pressure, right? And actually getting the feelings and the issues related to the trauma and or the trauma in a more we are disassociated from, because it's not happening right now, but this is how it made me feel. So let's process that. So then we can look at it for what it was, something that happened in the past. Not minimizing it, but not making it so connected so that it's right now happening right now. Cognitive behavioral therapy. So that helps us process and evaluate thoughts and feelings in that connection. One modality that's used a lot is eye movement desensitization, 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 that's it, and repressing. And so they use different kind of rhythmic movements with the eye. Elements of cognitive behavioral therapy kind of come together. I don't want to spoil it because I'm not going to have enough time to unpack it, but you can look that up. But this is what I want you to be mindful of. Be patient and understanding. Be patient. You are processing or helping someone process something that is so not normal, so uncomfortable, and so difficult emotionally. Like a lot of times we can't even put words on it. So don't judge yourself. Don't judge your loved one based upon how fast or how slow they seem to be going, or if they're doing so well and all of a sudden they have a moment. Oh, here we go. Got ruined today, or I thought you were done with it. But especially with yourselves, because that's, we are hard on ourselves, right? Offer practical support. If you're going to be a supportive person, offer practical support. It's okay. It's not. It's not okay. Clearly, it's not okay because they're having a moment. I'm here. What can I do? I can sit with you in quiet if you want. That's practical support. And let them determine what support is. If you want to be a supportive person, the person that you want to support should be the one dictating what support means. Don't pressure your loved ones to talk. Don't feel pressured to talk. I can't say too much more than that. It's just, and let them gauge that. right? Because then you're giving them power back. And you're also getting crucial information that you need to be the best support if that's actually what you want to be. So that kind of wraps up the overview on trauma. There's so many different ways we could go with that. We may revisit that theme again in the near future. There's a couple we have to revisit because there's so much to unpack. Difficult conversations was one. We did one series. We're going to do a second one because there's so many more difficult conversations that we need to address. But we hit some of the biggies in that one. So I want to give you your at home work. Your at home work is to list at least 1 to 3 stressors, things that cause you stress. It could be traffic, it could be a certain family member, it could be a certain task. I hate that I have to vacuum, whatever the case may be. Just stressors, right? And then how can you address those stressors? So vacuuming. Vacuuming is something that you have to do. It's a chore. Maybe doing it the first thing so that's over with. Maybe listen to music while you're doing it. How can you make that bearable? Or is there a way that you can either replace it or figure out how to make it more palatable, right? What are some of the things, and it could be some of the things that were mentioned in this live. What are some of the things that you can do to relieve that stress? How can you navigate that? Because there are some stressors that we just have to deal with. If work is a stress, people have to deal with that. Now, maybe we can rearrange how we deal with that if there's a way to adjust your schedule or whatever the stressor is at work. If it's a way to maneuver around that, then absolutely, because you don't want your health to suffer because of your means of financial, what's the word I'm looking for? Your ability to provide for your resources, your financial resources. You don't want your health to come at the cost of that, at that expense. At the same token, though, we have to figure it out. There's got to be a way to provide for our financial responsibilities and still be able to breathe in and out in a way that leaves us healthy and safe. So with that being said, that's your at home work. List your stressors, at least 3 of them, 1 to 3 stressors, and then 1 to 3 directly related to the stressors, ways that you can deal with that, minimize it, replace it, reduce it, right? So that's your at home work. Next week, we're going to be talking about our past. So the theme is I am not my past. And what we're going to be focusing on is giving yourself permission to let go. Because there are some things that have happened in our past that we may not have given ourselves permission to let go of. And then sometimes there may be things in our past that other people continue to hold over our heads. Finding our voice in the middle of that, finding our voice along the journey. That path is swollen with reminders and indicators and different things along the way, things that help project us or help in our trajectory toward where we're trying to go in this evolution of self and growth. And then things that say, haha, you can't do it, you can't do it, you can't do it. Those old tapes and those old people that, not old in the sense of grandmas and grandpas, but people from our past that, would say different things, or tapes that we would play over and over again in our minds that keep us in these stuck places. We're going to talk about that next week. So as you begin your weekend, please, please, please be safe. Make sure that if you are able to incorporate any of these tips towards self-care, that you begin to do so. Don't hesitate to look in your community and in your local community for different things that you like to do that you could incorporate into your life and different ways to promote relief, release, and self-care. If you have hobbies that were so much fun and that motivated you, that gave you life, that you haven't been spending a lot of time with, try to become more familiar with them. I know that I love painting, and because of the different things that are happening with school and work and things of that nature, I haven't had a lot of time to paint, but I did make time to paint over last weekend, and it was so rewarding. I may have to, at some point, I'll have to show you the picture that I painted because I really like it. But and it just felt good to get it out. Sometimes I paint things that are fun to paint, and sometimes I have an image. I'm trying to get it out from my head to the canvas. Is not always a smooth translation, but it's a lot of fun. So if you're able to do that, please do so. As always, be kind to yourself that you may be kind to others, and choose to speak love. Have a great weekend.